Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, What's New in Creo 9 Deep Dive Part 1. My name is Carolina Hägg, and I will be your host for today's event, and presenting today will be Mikko Hinkanen, our Customer Success Manager here at PTC Vision.
So hello everyone, my name is Mikko Hinkanen and I try to do today's presentation, the Creo 9 Deep Dive number 1, core modeling and a bit of assembly on the side as well. So without further delays, let's go to the main subject. I will just switch my camera off at the moment and then try to find my mouse again in order to navigate somehow with this marvelous thing called PowerPoint. So today's agenda is first we go through the core modeling of the Creo Parametric, what are the new and enhanced things in there. Then we have something new with the how do you select things on the Creo. Then we have a bit of, let's say, interesting new development in the model tree area, design tree area, and you will find out new things from there as well. And then general UI user experience things as well. Then something small with the embedded components enhancements, and at the end of the day, we do have assembly enhancements. At the next webinar, I'm about to talk a bit more about simulation products and how do they integrate with the Creo Parametrics. But now we move forward for the core modeling. So the sketcher, we have a few new things in there. So if you think about our capability of doing copying existing edges, offsetting them, the user interface is nowadays overhauled and it looks a bit more modern. I will have a short video of that one in order to highlight what's new. Then what's possible is, what's happening here is that we have a new feature in the sketcher called auto scale first sketch. It simply means that if you do have some geometry on your screen, and when you do your initial first change of dimension, you can make the system to scale all the entities based on that ratio. So let's say if you have a diameter of 100 and on one of the features and you scale it to change the dimension to 50, then everything will scale to 50% smaller. And then it stops and it doesn't do it again and again and again. It's just available for the first time. And also, if you don't like that, you can omit that with the complete Pro option. And then there's some enhancements when it comes to inspections tools in Sketcher, a bit more better highlighting and showing intersections and stuff like that. So if we go and see how is the actual software looking like, I'm showing you a small video in here. And where you go and make some extrusion and start picking the project button. As you can see, the collector button is here a bit different. You can still select them one by one or by loop selection using Shift key and get your geometry. And if you click again, the same button, project another edge, of course, there's still possibility to go to one by one or to take a partial loop of that surface, and all those application selection methods are still there. The main differences here is that the collector now hovers at the graphics user interface, and it's a bit different looking. And if you modify the selection using Shift key, then you can have from 2 loops or the whole surface loops or whatever there might be the selection methods available. You accept the sketch, make it do a more extrusion in there and assign it to a different body. But in here, if you take a look at what's now happening, if you take an offset feature, for example, just click that one, modifying with Shift key, and now you have possibilities of clicking apply repeat button, which then gives you a capability of going forward and making more of such entities in here. And automatically, as you can see, you will see those collision points in the sketcher environment, which just basically indicate that now there's a collision in here. If you go for this basically rule-based dialog, in depth in here, you still have all the old tools available. If you want to basically manually define exactly what you want, rather than having those Shift key combinations with you. And the outcome of all of this is basically a fun composite curve. So those are single entities. rather than individual curves. So if you remove one of them, then you remove all the segments of them as well. And same comes to the reference handling. So if you are changing the references and you have those complete loops, it is enough now that you just change it once and everything will follow after that one. As you now can see that we just changed from this internal loop to this external loop, just change of one reference only. And then you have your geometry to sketch or for the extrusion ready for you. And if you go for edit references button, the same thing applies in here as well. As you can see, there's individual edges here as a references. And if you go and make changes in them, like selecting that edge instead, you will notice that, by the way, it's more granular in selections, and the changes are a bit more predictable what it used to be. So basically all of these basically then enhances the model manipulation and the creation of the new geometry and modification of the previously existing geometry. Oh, now we are missing the same video again. Then again, so a bit of repetition. So we do have this auto scale first capability in here. So basically what it does, that if you have some geometry sketch on your screen, you have now capability. It's the first time when you change the dimensions, everything will scale to that ratio. So you will get a bit faster to kind of fun right size design rather than have to modify all the dimensions one by one or use that modified dimension from the user UI. And of course, this is a configure pro options which you can put on and off, and should you not like it, or do if you want to kind of enforce. By default, it's on. Then when it's come to kind of inspection tools, we do have everything from the again all the kind of capabilities, the in-graphics toolbar, the small tool kind of a bar which is hovering over the screen at the sketching. And today we are highlighting the kind of overlapping geometry, kind of intersection points a bit better than what it used to be. So it makes you have a bit better control of your design intent to do that. Then one new tool for the Creo Parametric is that with Creo 9 we do have this divide surface or unified surfaces. Basically what we do in here is, if you have an individual single surface, you can divide that using the projection to do different surfaces with exactly the same mathematical definition. And if you happen to have this, on the other hand, you can then unify them to one single entity. It depends on the case which one you might want to use. So, but when it comes to for use cases of it, there is a lot of it. And if you think about painting only part of the surface, applying some surface roughness only for the part of the surface, applying some force, supports and stuff like that to only a part of surface, it is quite nice nowadays to be able to do that in Creo. Also, manufacturing and let's say coordinate measuring, it is much easier now to define that where exactly do you want to go when you have your split surfaces with you. Some use case examples of how can you utilize that capability. Like in here we have kind of a small latch mechanism. In here we are highlighting the contact area when this is rotating and hitting that. So this is the area where it was made. If you have this product manufacturing information like the geometrical tolerance on the left side or the right side, if they vary for some reason, you can kind of now highlight it. Or if you want to have let's say different surface roughnesses between the different kind of parts of the geometry, you can nowadays make it happen as well. Then on the other hand, just for aesthetics, if you want to apply geometries, if you want to apply colors, it is nowadays quite easy to just split the surface and have a different colors on it. So the models are a bit more representative of the real life rather than looking a gray 3D kind of a lump instead. Then if you go for process definition, let's say we have a kind of a verification process on this surface, you must do something. Maybe in here you might have some clamps or something like that. It's quite easy nowadays to mark them, so it's kind of clear for everyone that what to look for. Then let's say simulation and generative design. If you want to apply forces only on the partally surface, not that the whole surface, it's quite easy today to do that as well. And then, of course, those regular kind of basic modeling operations. If you want to engrave some, text to that one, if you want to have some slots which are milled to the tube or pushed through, one of the options where how you can model that is using the split surface and flexible modeling tools. Then something completely different. We have a pattern. And when it comes to massive patterns, the default type of pattern is so-called general. There has been, over the years, something called variable and identical, and still they are in there. But nowadays, what's happening is that we are making them a bit more faster than what it used to be, and also it's now there's possibility to switching between the different hold times, so it's not the simple or the standards. You can basically change these even though the feature is patterned after that one. So for those who don't really know what's the difference between general, variable, and identical, if you go for your pattern definition and options, you will see that those are available in there. Idea is that identical means that you have those kind of drilled holes which are not touching each other. So basically, one single drilling is not kind of intersecting with the second one. And basically, the starting surface and end surface must be the same. And if that is the case, you can use the identical, and then the regeneration is very, very fast. If you have capabilities that the surfaces on top and bottom might vary a bit, then you have a variable version of it. And on the other hand, if it's general, then the individual entities of the kind of pattern instances can then kind of intersect between each other, and of course, the surfaces can change and everything, but that is computationally most intensive one. And should these kind of conditions not kind of fulfill, if you want to try to do the identical pattern, the individual kind of pattern members are then intersecting each other, this one will fail. So please bear in mind that even though it's faster, there's some limitations. And you do nowadays have a new config the pro option to set what is the preference kind of pattern for you, what pattern type to use. So of course the general is most stable, but it takes more time to regen. But should you know already that most of your design is, let's say, identical type, why not put that in the config options and deal the ones that are failing with the general then manually? Just a thought for that. Then something else for basically standard hole cases. So when you have a, let's say, metric M16 or M20 or something like that, and you just drill the hole for bolt, you might want to have a diameter of that hole so that it's a close fit, medium fit, or free fit. Today you can set that what is kind of the default case, that do you always kind of by default want to go with the close fit or let's say free fit, depending on your industry. And also some general enhancement has been made for assembly hole regeneration, so the system automatically tries to detect a bit better that which are the holes that one must regenerate because of the geometry change. Then we have something else called hole nodes, which are these kind of things. So marking what kind of a hole there is, and do we want to always regenerate the content of these nodes, or do we want them to stick as they are? And that's today is a user controllable thing. Previously it was that if you do some modifications to them, then they are as they are, and you can't really update them unless you do a heavy modification to the feature. Then a bit more kind of on the main kind of idea or main, let's say, development thread for the Creo 9 is enhanced children handling dialogue. So at the Creo 9, PTC really has trying to push a bit more tools for people to investigate and probe the model structure. How does it, how the features are related and how you manipulate with them. And today, if you click suppress or if you click delete, system will ask that, okay, do you just want to suppress everything or suspend them? So this simply means that, okay, let's deal them later. and just click suppress on all, everything is gone. But if you click edit details, you are landing this kind of a dialog where you can state to the system that, okay, I want to suppress or deal later on the kind of with that feature that what will it do regarding that suppress. So you can have a bit more control about what is happening during your suppress or delete of the features. A bit more visibility of the children. Then a new topic after this core modeling kind of a scheme. Then we go for selection. What's new in there? And since we now have with the Creo 7 was with multi-bodies, sometimes it's a bit, let's say, challenging trying to find out that, okay, if I want to edit something, some part of geometry, what should I or how should I select? An idea is that if you have this white geometry on top of this green one, then what will happen when you merge those, let's say these are two different bodies, and then you merge them together, and then you try to edit the value of this fillet. And if you at the Creo 9 click that fillet and then click the pen and ball symbol, so edit definition, what will happen is it goes for merge feature, the body merge feature. But most likely what you want to do is to edit the radius of this one. So with the Creo 9, it is going for round feature instead. So idea is that what we are skipping here is skipping the body operation features to provide you access to those geometrical features that are actually generating the form. And assuming that you are most likely not wanna tempering with or the modify the, let's say, the body merge or something like that. Then we have something else for the probing of the geometry called select related. An idea really is that if you click something and then you have one button like this available and you click that, you will get this select related dialog, and it will say that, okay, your current feature is cut, it's a member of pattern, but on the other hand, the direct parents are in here and the direct children are in here. So what this gives you is capability to investigate the design feature, design relationships. What is affected if I change this one? And as you can see, you can have this as a floating floating window in there. But on the other hand, you can have these in the model tree as well. So you can have a model tree and then you can have a select related tree side by side or on top of each other. And that kind of gives you a very nice idea about what's happening in there. And then if you go and click around, if this kind of window is present and you go and click, then this current will always kind of auto-actively kind of change in here and update, and also the corresponding features are in the model tree are also activated. But if you're starting clicking from here, different features, then they don't kind of change that would be the active selected one. These are just selection for the features. So if I try to somehow highlight that, let's see. So if you now select that one, and from the top right corner you have this select related feature, you will see that, okay, in the assembly context we have all the parts, all the bodies, and all the components to the top assembly. And if you then go and activate this component or open it even and click exactly the same button, you will also see the children in here. So at the part level, there is a bit more kind of fun extra information rather than in the assembly level. It's a bit more kind of general. And in here you can see the select related, for dialog, or let's say tree, which you can then dock as any kind of fun model tree or layer tree previously was. And you can take that off from there and on again if you want to do that, or then drag it aside or make it minimized. So it's quite flexible. But on the other hand, I have stopped the video now. You have the model tree, then on the you have your design items tree, and then you have your kind of fun selection tree in here. Now we start to have 3 different trees in here. Plus you still might have even the layer tree in here. So you can get a bit lost here instantly. So bear in mind that there's a different trees for model tree. You have this parent child tree, and then we have this design items thing, which is yet not covered yet. So should you select something in here, then system should automatically highlight the facts in here. That okay, what are we picking? What are the kind of current geometry, and what are the children for it, and how does it work? And if I select something from that tree, it just highlights it, but it doesn't make it active unless you pick it to be active. And then you can go through what's what in the, what are the features affecting the geometry, modify them if needed, and make them active if you want to do that. You will see that there's a sketch, and what is affected. That sketch is of course divide, surface, and so on. And you can also have those arrows which enables you to travel, so to speak, in modeling history to see that what are the geometry really, how it's built feature by feature. Also, we have something new in here, the capabilities of accessing insert mode and via those trees. So there's also something new in there. Maybe I jump for the next slide now again. So as I already kind of stated that there's now multiple trees, and let's go a bit more deep dive with that. So what are we actually having? So previously, when you had your model tree, it looked like maybe like this, but now you have a new set of tools in here, and particularly these 4 buttons in here are the new ones. And if you go forward, you have this creation of custom groups in here. Let's go investigate that a bit later. Then you have a design tree, which then is somehow collecting of the quilts and the bodies and the custom groups in here. Then on the other hand, you have the standard layer tree, which you have had for years. Then on the other hand, you have the select related, which we just highlighted at the video. So showing parents and childs of that feature. And then you have a new one called quilt body evaluation tree. And that has a bit different, let's say, angle on that design items. They are somehow related, but it is information is kind of shown you in a bit different way. So before we go on the individual trees, let's just state that we can today, first of all, hide those trees, show those trees, modify them so that some of the things are existing at the default user interface, let's say on the sheet metal, but not on the auto modes. So it's quite nicely tuned and configurable for the user needs. Then the design tree. How would I say? First of all, the queries in here. Nowadays, if you want to just search for, let's say, bodies, then you get all your bodies in here. And if you want to have the bodies that are hidden, then of course you have to have a multiple kind of queries in here. And today we are having an OR as a default kind of a query, let's say, logical operator between the queries. So this or that, so you get the kind of both of them. Previously we had the AND in there. So basically this will filter the trees by your selection. And then what else do we have in here? Well, let's go forward in here and see this in the live, so to speak, environment. And as you can see, the design items tree is in here. And if you click that one once more, you should get it as a different dockable window in here, which gives you possibility to start modifying about what do you want to see. Do you want to see the contributing features for the quilts, or do you want to see the consumed feature at all? And if you go for different kind of a mode, let's say welding mode, you should have a bit different kind of fun look and feel of these trees in general. So they are varying by the kind of application. And nowadays what we have is these custom groups, which you can rename, can change and everything. And you can kind of how would I put it, have a bit more kind of a non-time dependent approach for your design data management in there. And as you can see, now we are kind of tracking the kind of a geometry which are based for the sketches for this construction group, and their features are just there. Just to give you a hint that, okay, these are the main ones that are driving the geometry. And you can have a multiple similar names in the groups. So you're not limited with the unique naming of those. So let's say you have the surfaces that goes for construction, but you have a curve that goes for constructions. You can have a different borders and different places of tree in there as well. And if you select something, obviously something is highlighted on the model tree as well. If you want to, let's say, suppress or resume on the either of them, it will go nicely as well. It's also possible to change the order of the features from the, let's say, design tree instead of model tree. But this is kind of the general, how do I say, view of the geometry, how it's developed, which kind of components are related to each other. So it's not only your model tree that is nowadays important, you have some other means as well to investigate and prompt geometry. Then I lost my mouse somewhere. And if we go for those, let's search something from the design tree in here, you will see that, okay, all of those LED kind of containing things are in here. And you can search them by material or search them by, if it's hidden or something. Just if these design trees are quite long, how do I do that? Then you have some capabilities in here. Yep. Then we move forward. The custom groups, I was briefly explaining already this one, but idea is that these are used for documenting the design intent by grouping features together according to the function rather than a design history, which is what is the feature number, where it's located. So idea is that you just take the features and drag them directly to these folders one by one, or if you are using a control key to kind of modify the selection, then the features and the bodies / quilts affected to them are also included in those kind of custom folders. And if you want to have everything, basically features and bodies and everything, then you click Control Shift and then just drag from the model tree and you get what you want. Should you want to remove something from here, just click it and drag it away and it will be deleted from that group, but not from the model. And then one of the new things is the default custom groups, that if you have that, then all the new features are heading for the default custom group. So while modeling, you can already then starting to orchestrate that, okay, what are the kind of the driving curves and dimensions in this model, and add them in the specific groups, and making it easier for your colleague to understand later on that, okay, what is going on in here? How is this thing modeled? And where do I have to initiate my changes? And should we take a brief look at this one? If you go again to the design tree department, you will get it in here in the different kind of tree. Let's say you will see that there's a lot of folders in here. Some of them are empty, some of them are not. And if you just take, let's say, basic datum features in here and drag them somewhere, or let's say one of those custom groups, that's where they land. You also have possibility of either dragging them out or using the right mouse button to remove the stuff from there. And if you're using Ctrl-Shift to modify, you will also get the quilt slash bodies, depending which bar are kind of affected to that group. Or if you have something in the kind of feature groups already, then those are also draggable for the custom groups. So the general idea with the custom groups is really to push the features in there, which are not really, how do I say, not really looking at the feature order. These are just the features that are affecting things. So if you have, let's say, a middle section feature, then these are the quilts and patterned quilts, which are then used for the creating that one. And the star here indicates that this is my default group, and you can have with the right mouse button put to the default groups, or if this is now the default group, all the features that I'm creating are landing in there automatically. So the last one that we just created lands there. Then something completely new called quilt/body evaluation tree. And on some CAD systems, we have had this, let's say, solid construction geometry tree, where your model tree is not linear, and this somehow now tries to mimic that. Okay, how do I know that which features are affected, and how did the one build this model first of all? And this is now a hierarchical kind of a representation of the features. And then with the Creo, was it the 7 or 8? We had these snapshots, basically, that if you go and over some quilt, it will highlight that, okay, how the quilt did look at the moment when you modeled that one before the merge, let's say, operation was in there. So we have capability of showing the snapshot preview in here as well, which makes it quite nice and easy to understand that, okay, was the kind of quilts, were the quilts modeled, so that we can understand the design intent of this and know what to modify and how the features are related. So again, if you take a look at the video, you will see that there's a bodies and quilts, and now if you click there to show this evaluation tree, expand it, you will see that, okay, everything is in here, and that button is on, which simply means that if I go and hover over it here, I start to see a bit more about how the model is built. And as all the windows, this is also dockable in here. So you have your body, you have a ticket, and as you can see now, it's highlighting one by one those surfaces as they were before those merge operations. So this quilt border line, now it's merged to that flat line. And if you go in there, you will see that there's some blocks in here, modeled as a blocks before they are combined together, before they are joined to the space geometry. So it makes you really, really kind of fun. At the surface modeling, to have a really, really nice set of tools to probe the design in of it. Okay, how is this piece of geometry created? Sometimes it can be quite confusing to find out that, okay, which are the kind of affected quilts and which are the affected kind of models, our features, kind of producing this render result. What else do we have on this video? Let's see. And as you can see, we are now propping just one quilt in there, feature by feature, how it is built. So this is basically the feature history for that, just for that single quilt. And there seems to be another, quilt on it, which is created by merge operation. And if you go below that one, or to see what is the quilt one all about, you will see also the construction history of that one. And what now we have, as you can click something, of course, you will see that, corresponding, features and the quilts and how it's merged together and how does it, that piece of geometry is kind of evolving over the design. while the model is generating. So a new way of probing geometry, let's put it like that. Then, while we have these multiple trees, we have now kind of a new and updated insert commands as well. Before we had just an insert here, which simply means that after selected feature, put the kind of fun location in there and just insert my kind of fun new feature in there. Now we have an insert before as well, so not in there, but just before it. Also, when it comes to quilts, if you go and play around with that one, then it's possible that, if you click quilt feature, then you land on the model tree on that very spot just before it's consumed by other features like a merge or cat or something like that. So you get kind of the whole quilt at your hand, and then you can model that and return from the insert mode, and you are able to kind of much more effectively manipulate your geometry to get to what you want. Then something completely different. Again, we had with the Creo 8, was it a thing called embedded components, which just simply means that if you have, let's say, a printed circuit board or some other components like, let's say, diesel motor that is coming from another design department or subcontractor or wherever, or some kind of component supplier, when you have, let's say, a step file which contains, let's say, 3,000 different solids, it's nowadays possible to flatten the structure, and it is now true still. But what's happening is with Creo 8, it exists, yes, but when it comes to performance of that, it wasn't so great. It did the job, but it took sometimes few hours to flat, let's say, 2,000 parts. And nowadays it's, let's say, implemented in a way that it's faster. And on the other hand, previously it wasn't available by default, and nowadays it's enabled by default, so it's available for our users to flatten out the structures if that is needed. And of course, there's a operation also to reverse that, so that you get all the components which are no more fun, which were kind of flattened out during the first process to embed. Then if we go to generic kind of assembly changes, at this story of let's give user more kind of a visibility what's happening. There used to be this file called circular references report, and you might see that in the log of the Creo Parametric at the lower end of the screen, that okay, so there's some CRCs in there, which previously meant that you have to go for files and you really have to dig in that which is the file that I have to find in order to find out this kind of information window where to pick up the problems that okay, this model is kind of having a circular loop of references, so if something changed, everything started to change, and stable regeneration is not necessarily guaranteed. But nowadays you can get that from the notification center or under Tools tab Investigate, and you can get the same information without need to find out the exact location of that file in the working directory. Secondly, some small kind of enhancement. We have had assembly export lines for edges, but still there are assembly features, and you weren't able to group them. Now you are able to group them, and also the standard operations can be applied for those groups as well. So that's a nice small enhancement. Then we have something, let's say, small but still important. If you have an individual part file and you want to get the assembly context, replace that with an assembly. With the Creo 8, you can't do that because there are different object types. So you have a part file and you have an assembly file, so there are different CAD objects. You can't do that, but with Creo 9 you can do that. So you can change the part file to an assembly file if that is what is needed. And also the system tries to take care of the references for everything as well. Then sometimes when you have a data on the hard disk, it is you have the same name in multiple kind of folders, and when you have that in assembly and you want to change to the same name, then you have a bit of problem with you at your hands. System is trying to still keep the old kind of a location of the file and everything, and it gives you a bit hard time to kind of changing the assembly or component with same name, but now we have a new options in the replace that existing copy is totally okay to change in there as well. And then we have a similar thing with when you design things with the hard drive rather than a windshield. If you are missing components, sometimes people have a tendency of renaming the things, and then some assembly is losing the tracks of, okay, these are renamed and I can't find the original ones, what else to do. And now there's capabilities of reviving that assembly even though the components have been renamed. So it gives you a bit extra kind of capabilities to basically import your data again, even though some component renaming has happened on the background. Then for those of us who are writing a component level relations, you sometimes need something called session ID, which has been available in there, but it has been let's say nicely hidden in the relations dialog box, where you have to ask from component to component that, okay, tell me what is your session ID so that I can refer you in the relations. And now what is capable that you can have that in your model tree as a separate column. As you can see that the feature numbers are kind of increasing monotonically upwards, but the session IDs can be whatever, let's say, and so it's not easy even to guess what is the proper one. Then I lost my mouse again. Then the visual field analysis is a new feature in the Creo Parametric. Idea is that what you give is a focal point, then you give some kind of a look through, or basically look at or look through. So where do I want to look at? And then you're telling that, okay, tell me what are kind of limiting my field of view, and then you may even exclude some of the objects, and then you're generated a quilt, which is showing that what human camera or sensor can see. And yes, you can have multiple of them as well. So should you design some sensors, some, let's say, surveillance systems, or let's say want to put some let's say layout of some let's say some device or something, so that it's visible for the controller that, okay, I can see all the kind of control buttons on the one spot, or I can look at the one of the components and still adjusting something else. It's now possible to kind of visualize those visual cones rather than trying to do a bit of trial and error with them. Then with Mannequins, we have new features with the copy posture and constraints, which simply means that if you happen to have a, let's say, small person in the vehicle and then you're putting a very large in, it has been a quite tedious job to then drag each limb to correct position. What you can now do is basically copy the posture and constraints and then just paste it to a second fellow, so it sits exactly the same as the first one. Of course, it's a different size, but that's the way that you want it to be anyway. So you have a faster manipulation of the mannequins resulting this. And then one of the final things, the welding has been enhanced a bit as well. What we have is offline programming for the especially fillet welds. It has been quite popular for people to try to create paths for the welding robots to do the welding. And now we have a capability to export the solid welds so that we can reuse that information in the robots so that they can start welding. And if I look into XML data, it's basically showing the starting point and orientation, midpoint and orientation, endpoint and orientation, so that one can then interpolate the required kind of welding path based on that. And then a second small kind of adjustment is that the capabilities of putting mass kind of properties out from the Creo Parametric directly is there, and you have now two new kind of formats of how to export the data. And one other is comma separated values, and another is XML, and you can use them in the kind of third-party systems out there if that's what needed. And then one of the last slides I have in today is that when it comes to Creo Elements Direct, what PTC is also providing, we have even better support for 20.5 of it. And we are now able to transfer the configurations in there. So if you look at the Creo Elements Direct model in here, you will see that, okay, in here at the front, there is no wheels. Even though if I load this one, the Creo Parametric number 8, the front wheels are there, even though they shouldn't. But if I load it for Creo number 9, then the configuration is as it is with the Creo Elements Direct. So basically, this enables to reuse Creo Elements Direct in the Creo Parametric. And also, we have something called imprinted edges in there, which is now leveraging the divide surface capability of Creo 9. So even better support for PTC, between the PTC products in there. Now, that was this last slide. Last time I promised to get back to you to one of the questions from the audience, that how about can I use bodies in simplified reps? And the answer is, well, no, not directly still, unfortunately. But what you can do is we have this quilt body evaluation tree, is that you look at one of your body, let's say like this. Where's my mouse again? In here you have a body number 1, and then when you come to creating a part level simplified rep, you just exclude and pick all of them from here, and you get your simplified representation, which basically kills away all of the features for that one particular body, resulting 0 objects for that. Alternatively, what you can do is to create a rule-based layer which contains all the features for the particular body, and then of course you just go and select everything based on that, and you have the same solution. And third one is of course use those previously discussed manual groups to use those for selection of the affected features and bodies to get the same thing done. But still, we don't have the exact the holy grail of the thing called I want to pick one body and that is excluded and all the features belong in it. No, we can do it that way, but we can approach this from the feature-based solution instead.
Thank you everybody for participating on today's webinar, and please feel free to register for our next webinar, which is going to be focusing on simulation and analysis functionalities. So we will see you next time on the 9th of June.
Thank you very much on my behalf as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye.